Thank you, everyone, for coming. This is actually really exciting. I'm one of those weird people who've always wanted to give a speech. So this is kind of like a dream come true for me. So I feel a little bit honored there. So thanks, guys, for having me. I want to share with you tonight a story about myself and kind of what I learned through a really bad time in my life, specifically relating to being an artist. It's a story of pain, it's one of recovery, it's one of art, it's one of life. It's one that many people in this room would have been through. Like, I would be very surprised if someone hasn't had a very similar experience to me. Just so I can get like a little bit of a gauge. Who's a programmer? Who's a programmers? Sick. Artists? Sick. Do we have any actors? No. Yeah, buddy! Yeah. My boy. Filmmakers? Yeah, nice. Yeah, filmmaker? Sick. Cool. Everything that I'm going to talk about in this speech, I'm going to do through the lens of being actor, because that's what I trained as. But that applies to everything, like everything that, any discipline that you heavily identify as, so being a lawyer, being a doctor, being a programmer, being an artist, whatever it is, that's still going to apply. So apologize in advance because I'm going to use the word actor a lot. It's still really relevant. When I graduated in 2017 from my drama school, I was scared, like shit scared. Can I swear? Is that okay? Okay, good. Too late now! Yeah, I was like terrified. I felt like I was a prisoner coming to like the end of their life sentence. And now suddenly I had to like go back into life and live like a normal person, which was scary, because I felt like I'd been institutionalized, right? I got to do the thing that I love every single day for 2 years. That's Murray being the actor, that's Murray being the performer, and the artist not being Murray the person for 2 years. And it was like amazing. But then suddenly I'm going out and I'm now gonna have to live as a person. I completely forgot how to live as myself. And it became really evident later. I put an insane amount of pressure on myself to be the artist all the time. Like every moment of my life, it was like Murray, the artist, and I had to be that at all costs. And so did a lot of my fellow graduates, and a lot of my friends had very similar experiences. I tell you what, without much pressure, I struggled. I struggled to sign with an agent. I struggled to get work. I struggled to even get into like meetings and interviews. I struggled to get into student films. I found it really hard, and it got worse. Every moment that I wasn't being the actor, every moment that I wasn't acting on a stage or on a set, it just compounded even more, and it twisted up to this like horrible, writhing little ball. And yeah, it just got really bad, really horrible, really fast. I have never had anxiety in my life before, but after I graduated, I knew what that felt like. And it was horrible, and I don't want to go back there. I'm sure a lot of people in this room have felt very similar things. I ended up with major depression as well. I don't know if anyone here has dealt with that kind of stuff. Maybe you have. It is really, really challenging. And what I found is that those two things tied into my sense of identity really intimately. I like struggled to get out of bed, and I've just like really twisted, romanticized memory of the day that I kind of realized that this was like, I was in a really like bad place. The morning that I kind of decided not to be an actor anymore was like, I had like a huge window that was like the size of my whole wall in this old house. And I was just like lying there looking out into in like winter, watching the winter sun like burn through the cold. It was very romantic. But that image just stayed with me, because that morning I couldn't envision a future where I was a successful actor anymore. I just couldn't imagine it. For someone who's had a great imagination his whole life, suddenly that seemed completely implausible. And that idea got worse. It got even worse. It got to a stage where eventually the idea of being successful at the thing that I loved actually made me feel sick. It churned my stomach. I remember being on a stage, one of the very few stages I was on that year, for a workshop, no less. So not even like a paid performance. And I was on there doing a really good job, because I'm a good actor. I'm a damn good actor. That's not what was in question. But I remember being on there and being like, shit, like, why am I on this stage? And more importantly, why are any of these people listening to me? I don't want to be here. I don't want to be doing this. This is freaking horrible. I got to the point where I felt fraudulent. Like I felt like I didn't belong. Like I hadn't earned my keep being up there. I hadn't earned my right to be an artist because I hadn't been practicing my artistry all year. And that's a false economy. That is an absolute lie. We're going to go into that later, 100%. What I found was my identity was completely in danger. And I remember at the start of this year, I called up a dear friend of mine, bawling my eyes out like I was 13 again, telling my first love, I love you. And her being like, yeah, nah, I don't feel the same. And that feeling sucks. And it was the same kind of feeling. That was like the first of like many illustrious cries in my life. But I told this friend, like, I don't think I can do this anymore. I don't think I can be an actor anymore. I think I have to give up. I think I have to stop doing the thing that I love. I was going through a breakup with myself. And that's a weird feeling, to break up with yourself. I was taking something that was really, really important to me and removing it out of my life because it had become toxic. And it's like, it didn't matter how much I loved that part of myself, it wasn't working anymore. My sense of identity had broken, and the way in which I related to that part of myself didn't work anymore. I had an identity crisis, and that's what I want to talk about. Has anyone here felt anything similar? Like, it doesn't have to be that extreme, yeah? Yeah, 100%, yep. Like, even just feeling like, yeah, amazing. Like a sense of, like, pressure and, like, fear about needing to constantly do that part of you. Like, who here identifies as their job? Yeah, 100%. Do you find that puts pressure on you? Yeah, a little bit, not really? Sometimes, some people like...
It's like the other way around.
The other way around?
Aladdin became my job.
Yeah, cool. We'll go into that as well. It's scary. At the time, I had no idea what an identity crisis was, and I had no idea that I was in one. I just knew that I was depressed as shit and full of anxiety. And I know this because I'm a writer. Well, I'm not trained as an actor, but I'm also a writer. And I tried songwriting for the first time in my life, and I am not a musical person. To be fair, the song was brilliant, and it was really good, but it was literally about how all the colors in the world had faded to gray. And that was kind of like a big indicator. It's like, okay, I'm feeling some stuff. It was during the time that I got in contact with an old doctor that I used to see, Dr. Chris Ganora. He's this wonderful, beautiful man who helped me through this period in my life. And he's the one that presented me with the theory that I will share with you guys today. And I'm going to mention the word beautiful a lot, because what I learned about myself when I went down to what I'm going to share with you today was that I am a very, very romantic person. I like to romanticize everything in my life. And so a lot of my friends and the people that surround me and the people that I make bonds with are beautiful to me. And that's became an important part of my identity. Okay, so this tool is like really, really simple. and really effective for preventing people from going through the same thing that I did, re-identity crises. I promise you guys, there is good news in this talk. It's not all doom and gloom. It actually ends pretty lovely. I'm going to draw on this board now, and this is what the theory is. Super simple. All right, this little dot here, that's your soul. That's your very center soul. Whether you believe in it or not, whatever, that is like the purest representation of you. Around that is your core personality. That part is rock solid. You usually develop it about 12 years old, and it doesn't usually change. That is like core you. And then outside, we've got a semi, can you guys see this? You can kind of, not really? Okay. It's basically circles. There's like a dot and then a core around it, and then there's a semi-transitive layer around that, which is this one, and it has like breaks in it, so it's got like sections, and that level is changeable. It's a semi-transitive layer. So this part can change with enough effort and time, consistency, or force. You know, when something traumatic or something happens. And then this side, the outside, is just a totally transitive layer. This part changes all the time. So it is like your favorite flavor, or that cafe that you went to that was like rad, and now you're like, oh, I go to this cafe and it's awesome. Or your clothes, you know, what you're wearing that day, or whether new shoes you're trying, etc. Totally, it changes all the time. Now, most artists, again, I'm just using that as a catch-all term for everybody in this room, will put their sense of identity here, in the core level, which is absolutely what I did, without a doubt, because intuitively it makes sense. It's like I am defined by this thing that I do, and it's my love and my passion, and so it makes sense for it to be a part of my core identity, right? Because we all practice a sense of artistry daily. We write things down, we plan stuff, we dream, we imagine, right? So it makes total sense for us to put it there. But I argue, and what this whole theory is about, is that your sense of artistry lives here in the semi-transitive layer, because that layer can change with time and effort and consistency. But the other thing that allows you to do is flexibility. That's the most important part. So when the punches come, it can take it. And the whole essence of identity doesn't crumble down and fall into pieces. Right? And we'll talk about how to get a sense of identity from this core part out into the semi-transitive layer. It's so easy. It's one question, and it's amazing. Now, usually, artists, we have to compete against so many things, right? But one thing that is kind of consistent across the board is that we have very, very little control over our art, right? That we can control the desire to do it, we can control whether we do or don't physically do it in that moment, and we can control the execution of it. You know, how you draw, how you act, how you change your voice in that moment, how you express this image or whatever it is that you do, right? They're the things we have control over, but we don't have control over everything else around that. Who hires us, why they hire us, what they were looking for, why they chose that person over you, why they, you know, you don't choose the people you sit opposite in the office. You don't choose the people down the pipeline, up the pipeline from you. If you're not the very tippy top, you don't choose the whole vision. Like as an actor, I don't choose the director's vision. I don't choose the way they edit the film. I don't even choose whether the audience like it as a whole, because I'm just one part of that. There are so many factors that we don't have control of, right? And so if our identity is in this core part, suddenly there's a whole part of our identity that we just don't have access to, because it's completely out of our control, right? And when we're not exercising that core part of our identity, it all collapses in. And that is exactly what happened to me. That I wasn't exercising my acting daily. And that's what I identified as. I'd always be like, I'm an actor. You go to a party, someone's like, what do you do? I'm an actor. It's like, oh, cool, man. Like, I went on the weekend. What were you doing? I was learning lines because I'm an actor. Like, it's part of your identity. And I wasn't doing it. And so it crumbled. Right? So I'm not saying don't identify as an artist. Polar opposite. Absolutely identify as an artist. But use the tool that I'm going to give you later to move it into that semi-transitive layer so it has the flexibility to move and change and grow. Because believe me, it's going to change. It will change over time. Just by pure experiences. Like me standing in this room is an example. I trained as an actor. I thought I was just going to act for the rest of my life. It was going to be a hard journey to get there, but that's what I was going to do. I never thought I'd go back to writing. I'm a writer. That's what I do now. I'm a writer. I do narrative design here in this space. And it's amazing. And I never thought that was going to happen, right? And I'm going back and I'm directing. And I didn't think that was going to happen. But because I developed a sense of identity in this semi-transitive layer, it allowed me to change over time and develop that flexibility, right? I'm not going to go too deep into it. There were some other things that assisted me during my period, like seeing a psychologist and a psychiatrist and getting medication. It was a light, sexy medication, so fine. It was lovely. That's all personal choice. That's not what I'm here to recommend at all. I don't want to go too much into that. But what I will say is at the end of this crisis, when I was talking about it, my beautiful friend Naomi, she summarized the entire experience in one sentence. She said, what I've learned is this. This one question. When I'm not being an artist, who am I? And that is it. That is the entire theory in one sentence. When I'm not being an artist, what am I? That is the most important question you can ever ask yourself as an artist, because it takes that sense of identity from this core level and moves it into the semi-transitive level. Because in this model, right, everything moves outwards. The influence moves outward, right? So your core level, right, influences your semi-transitive layer and your transitive layer. And your semi-transitive layer influences your transitive layer. All the influence moves outwards, right? So if you take your sense of artistic identity and move it, bam, into the semi-layer, then all of that beautiful stuff, which you will discover later, about yourself and who you are at your core, that's no longer being clouded by this massive pressure to be an artist at all costs, is now being influenced in your semi-transitive layer. And what that means is that big, beautiful self inside you is now going to influence all of your art. And that shit will explode. I've seen it with my friends. It's amazing. It's like with Naomi, that example, the one that summarized this for me. When she did that, she went from this kind of reserved actor who was really clouded to this like weird, interesting, impulsive, strange and amazing human being. And it's no different for any other artistic discipline, because if your art's out here and your core is influencing it, then it just bubbles up and it makes it beautiful, and your art becomes so full of you and so full of life. And then because you've got this sense of identity of who and what you are, you start giving yourself permission to be yourself in daily life. Your weird, wonderful, amazing self with all your tics, all your strangeness. And I gotta tell you, it's really liberating to give yourself permission to be a weirdo. It's fantastic. I want to talk a little bit more about the things that artists kind of have a challenge against. So I'm gonna reference an old teacher of mine who's a doctor, Dr. Mark Seaton. And he's like a doctor of like mental health, essentially. That's what he has his doctorate in, but he specifically focuses on performing artists. But it's applicable to all artistry. And he says that in his manifesto to actors, you've got to claim your humanity as a person before you can claim your artistry as an artist. I think that's really, really important. And I think he's right. And I'm going to refer to him a bunch of times. I highly encourage you guys, if you get a chance, Google Dr. Mark Seaton, see what he's about, because he's got a lot of really valuable resources. But it's true, right? Like, you can't be an artist every second of your life. It's impossible. It's still to be that person who goes to the shop and buys the cereal. And that's not your artist. That's you. There's still going to be the person who goes and gets beers with his mates, makes friends, has relationships, lives life. You know, that's not necessarily your artist. That's you. Now, your artist is going to be informed absolutely by all of this stuff. And believe you me, they're going to be tagging along behind you. But it's not them. It's you. It's your core that does all of those things. That's why it's important to find out what that's all about. When I ask myself this question, I learn a lot of things about myself. Like I said before, I learned I'm a real romantic. I also learned that I'm a relentless optimist, which I think is like blatantly obvious by now. And like really boisterous human being. I learned that I love people and that I want to learn about people and I want to engage with people, even like the really shit ones. Because I want to understand them. I'm like, wow, but like this is so different. Let me learn you. I want to know about you. And all of that, the optimism, the romanticism, the desire to learn people, all of that shit went straight into my heart. Like immediately. And it just became informed because that was me. I was like, man, this is reflecting. I'm just going to reinforce it again, one more time. When I'm not being an artist, who am I? If you take anything away from tonight, it's just that one question. And ask yourself it. Like, even if you're not taking me seriously, which is fine because this speech is not for everyone, do yourself the favor and ask it anyway. And just see what comes up. Because you might be surprised. You might come up with something that's like, holy shit. You might be like, nah, I already knew. Let's try, buddy. Yeah. We, as artists, this is another reason why I think it's so important to ask this question. Because we as artists have to compete against so much stuff. The three really big ones that I want to talk about tonight is that, one, artists are elevated into idolization. They are the modern day champions, and it's everywhere. Art dominates everything. Movies, games, TV shows, everything. When you talk about people like Bradley Cooper, boom, they're idolized. You know, artists are put up there. And that puts an incredible amount of pressure on people who are just starting, who are doing indies, who aren't necessarily AAA listers, because it's like, why aren't you there? Or, shit, I want to become that thing. It seems so unattainable and impossible. The second thing, is what I just mentioned, that artists are also, while elevated, they're simultaneously ridiculed for not having made it. It's like when you say, I'm an artist, people are like, cool, what cafe do you work at? The fuck? That's messed up. The fact that, they wouldn't do that to a lawyer. I'm a lawyer. Cool, man. What fucking cafe do you work at? Who gives a shit? But it happens to artists. We get ridiculed for it. It's a part of the social consciousness, that there is a lot of, sometimes there's just a lack of support. They're like, oh, can you just give me this product that's going to take a lot of your time and a lot of your resources, and I don't really want to pay you, so can I just have it for free? We are ridiculed for not being there. We're not taken seriously a lot of the time. And the third one, which comes from artists, is that the artist has to be tortured in order to be brilliant. Or that the artist has to work themselves to the bone to be considered an artist. And it is unequivocal bullshit. It really is. It is an absolute myth. And it's a dangerous myth. It's sneaky because it will come in and it will get you when you least expect it. And that's why I want to talk about this kind of stuff, because when you move this up, it has flexibility and it can protect you from these kind of things. Right? Because that sense of identity is shifting and changing, right? And someone's like, what cafe do you work at? You're like, man, I work at the fucking one down the road, but who gives a shit, because I'm a fucking artist and I'm moving towards, I'm sorry, I'm really swearing now. I'm looking hype. I'm moving towards that. You know, that sense of identity can flex with that blow. It's not like, well, damn, I'm not being an artist, and I'm meant to be being an artist right now. It has that flexibility. I talked to one of my friends in Sydney recently, and I told him all about this, and he was like, yeah, but when I was really depressed, I was a better artist. Whoa. And I asked him, I was like, why? And he's like, well, I had all this free time. You know, I didn't go to work. I didn't have a job at the time because I couldn't work. I stayed at home and I just poured all my emotions into my script, and they were amazing. And I was like, okay, cool, interesting. But you can, still achieve the same result by becoming a more learned artist. I'm not just counting that part, but I'm saying you can learn your way around that, right? So in the same instance, if it's like, well, I'm not depressed anymore, so I'll go out and do all this work, you can go, I'm putting this 4-hour block down, and I'll just go, bam, write that. You can block that shit out. You don't need to be depressed to have free time, right? As for the emotions, that stuff can be learned. I'm an actor. I learn emotions. It can be learned, right? People, you learn stuff. When you think about old memories and stuff, you're like, shit, that makes me feel happy. Damn, that one time I embarrassed myself, oh my God. Put that shit into your art, you know? You can relearn that stuff. And you don't have to sacrifice pound after pound of flesh to do the thing that you love. I guess just going forward, I just want to say I'm always going to be an artist. I know I've talked a lot about kind of moving that sense of identity, but don't stop identifying as an artist, because that's the thing that drives you. I'm just saying protect that artist. Absolutely. I am going to be an artist, probably until I die. In fact, definitely until I die. But I'm also going to be Murray for just as long, right? And I can't leave that part of myself behind, and it actually feels good. It feels damn good to be me, right? Not just Murray the artist, but it feels good to be like, I'm Murray the person. That feels good. So, I guess just be yourselves, all right? Protect that beautiful self you've got inside, right? Relish that self-security that lets you be as weird as you are, because everybody's weird, right? Everybody, because they're different to you. There's always going to be a difference, right? And in that difference, that's where charisma lies. That's where self-assurance lies, right? The most charismatic people I've ever met are emphatically themselves. And it's so weird because they're just like, here I am. And they'll do weird things like have little tics and fucking weird stuff. And you'll just want to be like, tell me more. Like, who are you? I want to know stuff about you. That comes from having a secure sense of identity. Don't get me wrong. This might be a simple theory. This shit is hard. It's not easy. This is a long ass journey. It starts with that one question and ends with that one question. And that can do magic for you. So, I guess just be your strange, weird and beautiful selves and make interesting art. As Neil Gaiman says in his amazing commencement speech, which if you haven't watched it, 100% do, it's 20 minutes of pure gold. He says, make the art that only you can make. And I say, in the end, all art is a reflection of the artist. Thank you.